Perhaps, everybody ready? Perhaps you're wondering why Cory and I called you here. Well, I am so honored to stand here. Hey, folks in the lobby, chill out. We got news for you. I am so honored to stand here with all my colleagues in government, united in doing the work of the people, and I'm here to tell you we have a budget. The budget is balanced. It is progressive, and it's early. Congratulations, everybody. I want to start by expressing my thanks to Speaker Cory Johnson. Outstanding job by you and your team over all these weeks. Speaker and I have had what seems like endless conversations. They've been very productive conversations, many conversations over the last few months to get to this day. They have been characterized by real collegiality, mutual respect, purposefulness. I will say at the outset, and I'll say when I introduce him, the Speaker knows what he believes in and fights hard for it, and has had a very clear, substantive agenda from the beginning of this process. And I think the outcome shows the impact of having such a clear agenda. I want to say to the entire City Council, all my colleagues, I want to thank you for your exceptional efforts. You worked really hard and advocated hard for your communities and the people of your communities. It's reflected in this budget. So congratulations and thanks to all. To the wonderful City Council finance staff, which works so hard. And I want to thank LaTanya McKinney and all the finance staff at Council for all the... To my entire team, to First Deputy Mayor Dean Foulahan and Chief of Staff Emma Wolf, thank you for your great efforts. OMB Director Melanie Hartzog, outstanding. And to all the team at OMB, Melanie, please let all your colleagues know how appreciative we are for this extraordinary effort. The adopted budget for fiscal year 2020 will be $92.8 billion. And this budget was founded on two key principles. One, investing in a fairer city, a city for everyone. This is something that unites us all here. Two, realism about the challenges we face in our economy from other levels of government and the things that we know we deal with every single day. And those two concepts were brought together to create this budget. I have to say, on top of the speakers, very intense efforts to get us to this day, I want to thank, of course, someone I've had the honor of working with many years, the Finance Committee Chair of the City Council, Danny Dromm. Thank you. And I'm just going to say a few brief remarks, introduce the Speaker, and then the Finance Chair, and then we'll take questions on the budget thereafter. So we do have shared values, and that helps us to resolve a host of issues. We also dealt from the outset this budget season with some very tough realities, most notably coming from Albany. In the beginning of the process, you remember, we projected a series of challenges, a series of potential cuts from Albany. I have to be clear, way too many of those actually happened. And that's on top of years previous. And every time we take cuts from the state level, they become permanent. So this is, I want to be very clear, my immense respect and appreciation for everything going on in Albany right now, because some very important things are happening in Albany. A lot has been achieved in this legislative session, and there's been a real partnership between the Senate, the Assembly, and the Governor to get that done. But on the budget level, we have taken hits year after year, and we were clear about that, and we had to take that into account. We also knew that as we move forward, we would have to find more and more savings. You saw that in the preliminary budget and executive budget process. The Council has been adamant about the need to find further savings, and we have worked very collegially on that front. reflected a number of the council's ideas in the executive budget when it comes to savings. You'll see more now. While trying to achieve those savings and then actually achieving them, there was a real strong ground rule, which was we wanted to avoid cuts to frontline services that everyday New Yorkers depended on, and tried as much as possible to find those savings in administrative areas and other areas where we would not have a negative impact on our people. But we had to find those savings. At the time executive budget, we announced we'd achieved $2.5 billion in overall savings over the course of this whole budget process. And now we'll announce today that with the very close collaboration with the council and with the council putting a number of very helpful ideas on the table, we're adding an additional $300 million of savings to this budget. So thank you to all. And I want everyone to understand this group of folks behind me, who I've gotten to know so well, again, a council that cares deeply about the communities they serve and has a progressive vision for this city, but a very clear sense of realism at the same time. That's that focus on savings. It's also been a focus on adding to our reserves. And I hope this will be reported. You know, there are many places, many parts of this country, and right here in some of our history, where there should have been a time to save money and put money in reserves, and it didn't happen. This council, for years now, has done something which a lot of legislative bodies don't do. They've said, we need to be careful, we need to think about the future, we need to make sure we're safe. And every year, this council makes reserves a priority. And that's an extraordinary act. And that's very good for the city of New York. So in addition to what we had previously put into reserves, we will now be raising our reserve level to almost $6 billion total. And this will include $250 million in new reserves that will be added into this budget. I just want to thank everyone for that. With that addition, now the capital stabilization reserve will remain at $250 million, but the general reserve will go up to $1.15 billion. That's an addition of $150 million. The retiree health benefit trust fund will go up to $4.57 billion, an addition of $100 million. So this is literally the all-time highest reserves in the history of New York City, and it's something everyone should be proud of. Just a couple other quick points. There were three investments that I just have to highlight because I think they're so important for the city. They were all in the executive budget in April. They are now officially in the budget because of this agreement. One, first of all, something that so many people care about, health care. The plan, which is now being implemented to guarantee health care for all New Yorkers who don't have insurance. That is something that is for so many families in the city. Hundreds of thousands of people will benefit because we are ensuring that they will get the help they need. I want to thank the council for the support on this. This is a big day, and we're showing in this city that even when the federal government fails to act, we are making sure our people will have health care. And I want to thank you all for that. That's a very important day for New York City. Second, the Green New Deal, which we all worked on in so many ways, especially on the recent legislation, putting that into effect here in this city is going to have a huge positive impact on addressing global warming, the money to do that in this budget. Third, 3K, something I have devoted myself to. We are now going to be, as a result of this budget, expanding 3K to 14 school districts, and that will reach 24,000 young people by September 2020. And that's going to be great for this city. Now, the council in these last months really was focused. There were lots and lots of issues that came up, but there were a few that were absolutely paramount. And again, I want to always give credit where credit is due and thank the Speaker first and foremost. He was focused intensely. I know so many members were as well. This was one of the biggest subjects of our discussion. We all believe in equity. In fact, the notion that we talk about with our schools, the plan is called Equity and Excellence. That approach is sacred to us. That was always about our students, making sure all our kids got a great education. The council has rightfully said, and I agree fully, the idea of equity has to extend to our teachers as well. And that is why we are announcing today that we are on a path to addressing pay equity once and for all for pre-K and 3K teachers. Woo! Yeah. We are literally at the negotiating table now, today, and we are committed to resolving the specifics early this summer. And I want to say this has been an ongoing discussion, a major issue. I thank the council for the focus. This has been a labor of love for the council members. This has been something that people truly believe in. And it's gotten us all to make sure that we could move forward together. I want to also give credit to some folks who have been absolutely pivotal in this process, and two who are leaders of the labor movement who care deeply about the people they serve, but they care about all New Yorkers, because this issue is not just about the teachers, it's also about the kids they serve, the families they serve, and the impact it has on the whole city. So I want to welcome and thank for their very positive, constructive efforts. Henry Garrido, Executive Director, DC 37 AFSCME. And Kim Medina, Executive Director, DC 1707 AFSCME. And then someone else who I have known a long, long time and has played such a crucial role on this issue and so many other issues, because she is respected by all. And the things we've done in this administration, she was one of the founding stakeholders with her excellent effort as a co-chair of my transition, but now as CEO of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies. We turn to her probably 12 times a day on average. And on this issue, getting it right for our teachers, you've played an extraordinarily important role. You played a very important role in getting started the whole thing that we're talking about to begin with, which is pre-K and 3K. Everybody, let's thank her. Jennifer Jones-Austin. Another huge priority for the council, and this they've heard the voices of students, parents, educators, is the focus on more social workers in our schools. And I want to commend the council because they've put a particular focus on children in temporary housing, particularly students in shelter who need support. So due to the council's advocacy, we will be adding 2 different groups of social workers. The first, a larger group, 115 social workers, to focus on those young people who are in temporary housing. They'll be working in our school system, focusing on those kids. And then there'll be another 85 social workers added to our schools through Thrive NYC that will focus on our most vulnerable kids and the kids who have a particular need for access to mental health services. Altogether, 200 more school social workers, and they will be in place by the end of the upcoming school year. So we're really excited about that. Congratulations, everybody. I just want to say in the end, I think everyone who cares about the city, everyone who wants to see this city work, everyone who pays taxes in the city wants to see people in government work together and wants to see people work hard to get to agreement. We don't have to agree on every single issue all the time, but we do need to get to agreement. We do need to get things done, and this partnership proves it. Coming in with a budget early, coming in with a budget that is so clearly realistic, but also addresses some of the crucial issues of our time. I want to thank everyone. I've said it many, many times. My goal is to make this the fairest big city in America. This budget takes us a big step in that direction. Now, a few words in Spanish. Gracias al Consejo Municipal y a su presidente, Cory Johnson, which is the same in English and Spanish, estamos anunciando la adopción temprana de este presupuesto progresista y responsable para nuestra ciudad. Este año enfrentamos recortes estatales y dudas sobre la economía, pero trabajamos juntos para mantener y proteger servicios necesarios para los neoyorquinos. Con este presupuesto estamos aumentando nuestras inversiones para hacer de Nueva York la ciudad grande más justa del país. With that, I want to turn to the Speaker. Again, I can't count the conversations. There were so many, but I can tell you throughout that Cory Johnson acts with passion and purpose, always focus on how to get things done. And a lot of times we would talk after he had talked to council members, after he had talked to folks in the neighborhood, talked to advocates, and he'd raise concerns, and they were heartfelt, they were real, they were focused. And we kept saying we're going to find a way to address so many of these together. And I want to say he's a consummate professional. When he focuses on something, he never loses that focus. And that is a crucial reason we've gotten to today with such a successful outcome. So thank you, Speaker Cory Johnson.
Thank you.
Yes. And then we'll do the handshake.
And then I think Danny's going to say some words.
We'll do the handshake.
Okay,
after you.
great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I really appreciate the hard-fought, good faith negotiations that have taken place over the last many months. I am really happy to be here. I have so many people to thank, just like you did. I want to start off with just an amazing, amazing New Yorker, someone who is such a dear friend, someone who is loved by his colleagues, who has cared so much about the city for so many years, both as a teacher and as an elected official. I want to thank our finance chair, Danny Dromm. I want to thank our chair on the Capital Budget Subcommittee, someone who is so deeply focused on providing for New Yorkers who are vulnerable and marginalized, our colleague, Councilmember Vanessa Gibson. I want to thank the entire budget negotiating team. I want to thank every single council member. This has been a collective process that everyone's input has been incredibly important and meaningful to getting us here to this moment today. And I know every single one of us collectively, every council member, and as the mayor said, we are so grateful to have a consummate professional, someone who is our guiding light, both on the big picture items, but also on the details, someone who negotiates with the other side of City Hall, someone who has been at the City Council. She's going to kill me for saying this, but I think for more than 20 years. It doesn't look like it, but she's been here a long time. I really want to thank the finance director of the New York City Council, LaTanya McKinney. I want to thank, this is his first budget as Chief of Staff, and he has one of the hardest jobs dealing with making sure that we're doing things on track and making sure that all of the great members behind me are being responded to in a timely manner. Someone who is doing a great, great job, my Chief of Staff, Jason Goldman. I really want to thank him. And before I talk about the items, I really want to say, Mr. Mayor, I am enormously, enormously grateful for the totally professional, thoughtful, honest, good faith negotiations that did not just happen between us, but your OMB director, Melanie Hartzog, has been, again, a consummate professional during this entire process. And I really want to thank her. I want to thank her Chief of Staff, Avi Fink, for his involvement, and I want to thank someone who we all know very, very well, but was a really key person in all of this, and someone who is not just a professional as it relates to the work we do, but is just a really wonderful human being. I want to thank your Chief of Staff, Emma Wolf, for her really, really hard work. So this is a really personal budget for me and for, I think, all of us. It is my second budget negotiated as Speaker, and it aligns completely with my guiding principle that I try to carry with me every single day in government, and that is do the most good for the people who need it the most. Now, I don't want to get emotional, but as I've talked about before, I grew up in a family that struggled. If I wanted a book, we went to the library. If I wanted to play outside, we went to the park. If I needed help, it came from a school guidance counselor. So I know how important schools and parks and libraries are, which is why I am so happy to be standing here today presenting this budget of almost $93 billion. And this budget is going to help so many New Yorkers by supporting libraries and schools and parks. I've said it. I've said it many times that libraries are one of the most egalitarian things about New York City and about society at large. And today I am proud to say that this budget gives libraries a historic $33 million investment in libraries. That money is going to go towards helping children with early literacy programs. It's going to support immigrants in English language classes. It's going to keep families connected with virtual visitation for incarcerated family members. And it's going to help us get a fair and accurate census count. And I want to thank the chair of our Cultural Affairs Committee, Jimmy Van Bramer, for his leadership on this as well. This budget is also a huge, huge, huge win for parks. We need to ensure that neighborhoods in all 5 boroughs have access to a world-class park. And that is why this city council fought for and won a historic $43 million investment in our park system. We're going to see 300 seasonal workers and gardeners, 50 new urban park rangers, 80 new PEP officers, additional forestry management, and investment in our Green Thumb program, things that matter in local community parks across our city. Each and every New York City park is an oasis in the middle of our concrete jungle, and it deserves our support. Children need parks to play in and schools to learn in, and it's critical that we as a city invest in our children. And as the mayor said, early childhood education teachers, predominantly women and women of color, care for our children at the earliest stages of their education and of their lives. In some cases, these teachers in community-based organizations were making $35,000 less than their DOE counterparts. And I'm happy to say that because of the City Council's advocacy and a real aligned engagement with the mayor, we have agreed to take up and work towards a path towards resolution on these important issues, not just for teachers, but for other individuals in the system as well. And we look forward to doing that over the next couple of months and having a real engagement to make that happen. And I really, really want to thank a titan and giant in our labor community, someone who has dedicated his life towards helping working women and men in our city, someone who has a very difficult job dealing with many local unions, and he has been a really key part of this conversation, both for the mayor and for myself. I want to thank the executive director of DC 37, Henry Garrido, for his leadership. And similarly, and she has been here on the steps of City Hall, she has been here in the chambers, she has been here with a green hat on, she has been here over and over and over again, advocating for her members, someone who is just an invaluable labor leader in our city and who I'm so grateful for her leadership and tenacity and advocacy. The executive director of DC 1707, Kim Medina, is here as well, and I want to thank Kim. And lastly, the mayor said it, but she is just one of my all-time favorite New Yorkers, just an amazing, amazing woman, someone who weighs in on so many issues that affect workers, New Yorkers who are living in poverty and who are trying to move up the economic ladder, someone who is instrumental in universal pre-K, and someone who has been a key ally and advocate and educator throughout this entire process. For me, I want to thank the CEO of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, Jennifer Jones-Austin, for her leadership as well. It is so important, but I think we're on the pathway to finally get it done. We also prioritize, as the mayor said, protecting our most vulnerable students. We funded 285 social workers. 185, which are new, and as the mayor mentioned, 85 are funded through a reallocation of Thrive NYC money, and I'm really glad for the partnership on that. We restored $6 million for breakfast in the classroom funds for children across New York City. And I want to thank our amazing education chair, someone who would not leave me alone, Council Member Mark Traeger, for his hard work and advocacy. One of the things I am really proud of is that this council, all of us, stood united for our priorities throughout this entire process. We supported each other, and the results show we now are close, and it's going to happen, to announcing that a historic place for our city, a place that is a symbol for African Americans throughout New York and around the world, Weeksville is finally going to become a member of the Cultural Institutions Group here in New York City. And I want to thank Robert Cornegie and Majority Leader Lori Cumbo and Alika Ampry-Samuel and the entire BLAC for their advocacy on this. We got up to the number that we need, which is we secured an additional $14 million to get up to $40 million in census funding and outreach for the next year to make sure we have a fair and accurate count. And I want to thank the co-chairs of our Census Task Force, Councilmembers Carlos Menchaca and Carlina Rivera, for their leadership on this issue. We have a commitment and a pathway to, I believe, secure pay parity for our public defenders and legal services providers and district attorneys. All of these lawyers across New York City, both inside of government and outside of government, that do so much work for our criminal justice system. And again, there will be an engaged process that will take place over the next few months to work towards a pathway on resolution to provide some greater parity for these crucial and important workers throughout the system. Another important thing that the mayor and I have had many, many conversations about, and I'm really excited for that. I want to thank Councilmember Lantzman for his leadership on that. And we created a mechanism by which human services agencies receive indirect funding for their true costs. Right now, these very crucial social service providers throughout New York City that do so much in work that supports government, whether they're doing maternal health care or neonatal health care or HIV and AIDS work, they do this direct health care work every single day, and it has been a challenge for them as costs have risen, and we've worked very closely. LaTanya McKinney has worked very closely with Melanie Hartzog on getting a fair formula and ensuring that these community-based organizations working towards the fall will see a modification of the November plan to see an adjustment in getting that reimbursement. And the real champion, the person who has been yelling and screaming and fighting and stomping over and over and over again for years and years and years, and we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. I want to congratulate Councilmember Helen Rosenthal for her tenacity and leadership on this. We wanted more trash pickup on city streets, on the corners where you sometimes see overflowing trash cans. Last year, we worked with the mayor to get $4.2 million for additional litter pickups on corners across New York City. We more than doubled that investment, getting an additional $4.4 million this year for additional trash pickups in New York City. And I really want to thank our sanitation chair on this, Councilmember Antonio Reynoso, for his leadership as well. I started today by saying that this budget is personal to me, and I think every person standing here behind me would say the same thing because of the issues we advocated for in this process. And I believe this is a budget for everyone here and everyone that we represent. This is a fair and progressive budget for everyone in New York City, for our young people, our immigrants, our seniors, and our workers. We are the greatest city in the world. New York City is the greatest city in the world. But that progress is not guaranteed. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes commitment, and that's what this budget is. It is a commitment to the people of New York City. It is a document of our values and of our priorities. It's a commitment to our future and a roadmap to the city that we want to be, a city that New Yorkers deserve. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
And now he worked so hard to help us get to this day and played such an important role right in the center of this process. And I want to echo the point the Speaker made, someone respected by all and loved by all, the Chair of the Finance Committee, Danny Dromm. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a really wonderful moment to get to. First, I want to acknowledge Speaker Cory Johnson for your incredible leadership once again in successfully shepherding us through the budget season. I feel so privileged to be working with you. It is really unbelievable to have this opportunity. It's something I never dreamed of that would actually happen, that I never dreamed would actually happen in my life. I thank you very much. I love you, and we really, really appreciate your leadership in the City Council. I'd also like to extend my thanks to you, Mayor de Blasio, for all that you have done, for continuing to be a progressive force in this city, and for leading us in the right direction. Thank you for everything that you have done as well for New York City. I'm very lucky to be surrounded by an amazing finance team, which has provided invaluable support during this process. A very special thanks to Finance Director LaTanya McKinney, who's over there. She's wonderful. Deputy Director Regina Parida-Ryan, and each and every team member, and my own Finance Director, Robin Forst. Let me also thank my counsel, Rebecca Chasin, Stephanie Ortiz, and Noah Brick. And finally, thanks to the Capital Subcommittee Chair, Vanessa Gibson, for helping the council navigate through the complexities of this capital project. I could not have asked for a better, where's Vanessa? I could not have asked for a better partner in this process. Thank you, Vanessa, for all that you do. And let me thank the budget negotiating team as well. I have been on a number of budget negotiating teams, and I have to tell you, Mr. Speaker, this has been the most democratic process that I have seen since I came into the council in 2010. Every member of the BNT had the opportunity to express themselves, to say what they wanted for priorities, and to speak up, and every single member was listened to, and in most cases accommodated. So thank you to my team as well. I'm pleased to say that this budget is a statement of our priorities, namely, as much as we could, ensuring that our communities are served and that the most vulnerable New Yorkers are protected. I want to highlight just a few of these items that illustrate this commitment. This year, the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, we are stepping up in a big way for LGBTQ New Yorkers. Speaker Johnson and I worked hard to secure record levels of funding for the LGBT community. These dollars will improve delivery of health and human services for the LGBT individuals and families, particularly outside of the borough of Manhattan. Because transgender New Yorkers are among the most vulnerable and underserved in our city, the Council is proud to have allocated additional funding to programs for the trans community. This funding empowers the trans community and gender nonconforming community by providing them with educational programs, employment services, workforce development, healthcare navigation, legal guidance, and much more. The LGBT Inclusive Curriculum Initiative will again be funded in this budget. Thanks to our Speaker, to the Mayor, and to the Department of Education for adding $1 million to this effort. I am most grateful. I came out as an openly gay teacher in 1992 to much opposition to a curriculum at that time, and look how far we have gotten. Thank you for that support. This initiative supports the Department of Education's efforts to meet the needs of LGBTQ students and address the intersectionality of race, sexual orientation, and gender identity through the DOE's general curriculum. It will also provide professional development for public school teachers and integrate LGBTQ inclusive curriculum into literacy and history classes. The fiscal 2020 budget reflects the Council's commitment to parks equity to ensure that all New Yorkers, regardless of where they live, are able to enjoy our world-class parks. Additional funding will provide more maintenance staff and once again support staff for an extended season at our pools and beaches throughout the city. The Council has been dogged in ensuring our students have the resources they need, both academically and emotionally. We have fought hard to expand the pool of social workers and are happy to have an increase, as has been mentioned before, of 285 social workers, which will include approximately 100 Bridging the Gap social workers. The Council has championed Teachers' Choice for many years. The administration has agreed to baseline $20 million for this programming, meaning approximately $250 for every New York City public school teacher to defray the cost of out-of-pocket purchases for supplies for their classroom. Oftentimes, teachers spend more than $1,000 each year, and this is a token show of appreciation for the work that they do and their generosity. And finally, it's worth noting that this budget has responsibly set aside reserves, $250 million, to help us weather any rainy days that may come. Overall, we have managed to advance our priorities while looking after the long-term fiscal health of New York City. And for that, we should all be proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny. Okay, to our colleagues in the media, questions on the budget? Yes, Andrew.
Pre-K teacher parity is not finished yet, and the budget is early.
Right.
Couldn't you have finished it and then?
No, it was going to, this is something we've talked with the labor leaders about. This was going to take still a meaningful amount of time. It was going to take us into the summer. We all know each other very, very well. There's a tremendous amount of trust and mutual respect. We're going to get there. And when the time comes, we're going to fund it. We're going to fund it with savings, additional savings if we have to, or other choices that we will make. But we will, obviously, we also hope there will continue to be at least modest revenue growth. But we're going to fund it when the agreement is struck. We could not predict it in advance.
Approximate dollar amount?
No, it's not. Again, it's a collective bargaining process, so we never would do that through a budget per se. What the budget process achieved, and I want to again emphasize the Speaker's leadership and the Council's leadership, was to get us all in agreement of how it would be resolved, when it would be resolved, what the process would look like, and to get to an agreement that we all shared this priority. It had to happen, and we're saying it in front of all of you. You know, we're putting ourselves on the hook on purpose. So this is something where I always say every year when the Council says something is a priority, I listen. And this was a supreme priority for the Council, and it got us all focused on a very specific pathway to resolution. Yes.
Just a quick couple of fact checks. The Speaker said $4.4 million for street collection. That's right?
Yeah, sure. So last year we secured $4.2 million for additional corner pickups. This year we added to that, so we restored 4.2 and got 4.4 on top of that for a total, I believe, of $8.6 million. That's right, Melanie? Okay.
And then $33 million in capital and operations for libraries?
No, that's just on the expense side. So there was money that we got last year, and then we got additional money on top of it this year, a new investment. And out of that $33 million, $19 million is baselined out of the $33 million, which is a big deal, one of the biggest baseline amounts the library systems have ever seen.
But it is $33 million total in new funding.
Some of it was previous funding, which wasn't.
Is the executive?
Yes, that's right. Doesn't include the capital money. That's separate.
$3 million for parks, seasonal workers, et cetera.
And it's about $31 million in new money for parks, and about $12 million in previous money, and $9.5 million of that is baselined money for 100 seasonal park workers and 50 gardeners.
Okay, and again, anyone who needs, breakout specifics, I'm sure the budget folks will stay after Melanie and LaTanya to go over any details you need. Go, Anna, you've had a couple. Let's get someone else in.
Can you just spell out in a little bit more detail what you're actually committing to on parity? Is it you're committing to full parity by a certain date?
We're not giving any dollar figures. We're not giving a specific design. It's a labor negotiation process. And so what we're saying is we've got to get to something that everyone can believe in that addresses this issue. And we've got to do it by this summer. And then we're going to fund it. That's what we're saying. Go ahead.
Could you just clarify, you said with the social worker funding that it's coming, some of the social workers are coming from Thrive.
Yeah.
Is the funding coming from Thrive and it will be for DOE social workers, or will it be Thrive social workers? Just a little bit of clarity on that.
Yeah, Thrive is already very deeply engaged in Department of Education, has been for years. So one of the things that Thrive achieved was to make sure that every school, principals, teachers had access to mental health professionals, either full-time in the case of the community schools or folks who would come in when there was a need. Now Thrive is going to be funding this additional group of social workers, all of whom will be trained through Thrive Initiative and mental health approaches. So it'll be Thrive funding. It's from the savings that have been achieved. The savings came out of the Mental Health Service Corps. Some of that is going to fund other budget priorities. Some of that is going to fund these specific social workers.
Licensed social workers, not Thrive trained social workers?
Yeah, licensed social workers, please.
Yeah, so the 285, 100 of them are Bridging the Gap social workers. 100 of them are new DOE social workers. And then 85 of them are what the mayor just talked about as it relates to Thrive. That's how you get to the 285 number.
Thrive counselors, are they different than the DOE social workers?
Everyone, all the social workers are going to be trained, certified social workers. The difference is that the Thrive training will focus on the mental health challenges that young people face. And, you know, what we've heard from a lot of young people, we've heard from a lot of parents, we've heard from a lot of educators is they want more people in the schools who can help identify and address specific mental health concerns. So that's the training they'll receive. Yeah.
The Citizen Budget Committee urged the city to have a rainy day fund. Is this idea discussed at all?
We've been, again, as I said, we don't call it a rainy day fund, we call it reserves. And now we're up to almost $6 billion, which is a figure that previous mayors could only have dreamed of. And I give the council a lot of credit for that. It's an equivalent concept, but we've made a consistent priority of building it. So now every year there's been additions to it.
I just want to say on the rainy day fund, we are actually not allowed by state law to administer a rainy day fund because of how the budget powers were set up after the fiscal crisis. So what the Citizens Budget Commission called for was the currently impaneled Charter Revision Commission to put on the ballot the creation of a formal rainy day fund. Right now we have to use budget maneuvers to do that in a way to put money aside. And even if the Charter Revision Commission decided to do that, the state would need to change its law. The state right now doesn't allow for New York City to have a rainy day fund, so it's a much longer thing. It's not something that could have been achieved through this budget process. But that's why the reserves are so important.
Right.
In February with the preliminary budget, you warned of financial risks and revenue risks. But today's budget is $600 million larger than that one and almost $4 billion larger than last year's. Explain to us why the budget keeps going up and what happened to those risks.
The risks are still there. This is why we've added to reserves and why we've deepened our savings program. The things that we are investing in, either in some cases are sheer need, things we must address for a variety of reasons, or things that we think are the kind of investments that make sense for the city and are manageable and affordable. What we have done consistently is found more and more savings, and we've added to reserves. So that addresses the fact that if there were an economic downturn, and it's something we all have to be ready for, we have ways to immediately respond because of what we have in place. And again, the council's been outstanding both in encouraging deeper savings and expanded reserves. So we're ready in any situation.
I just want
Please.
to say something on that. You know, the only reason why the budget grows is because revenue grows. So it's not like we're growing the budget on our own. We have to have a balanced budget in New York City, and we've seen the longest economic expansion in the last 10 years that we've seen in generations since the Great Recession. 780,000 private sector jobs created since 2009, 3.9% unemployment, the lowest number basically ever recorded. Tourism, 67 million people visited New York City last year, the highest number ever recorded in tourism numbers. And so you're seeing the budget grow because our economy has grown. There was a blip before, I think, when the mayor unveiled the preliminary budget when he said those things, because you saw in December and January some variability and volatility as it related to the personal income tax revenue that was coming in December and in January based off the stock market volatility. And what happened, and the OMB director or LaTanya can correct me if I'm wrong, what happened was in March, April, April, and in May, the PIT money, the personal income tax money, came in much stronger than was projected. There are still some warning signs on the horizon, and there are some warning signs that the Citizens Budget Commission and OMB have both flagged as it relates to a potential decline in property tax revenue that's going to come in, and the unincorporated business tax revenue has fallen as well. So it's a mixed bag in some ways, but that $4 billion in growth since last year is solely because the economy has kept humming along. We created 78,000 private sector jobs last year, which was a big number, but there are warning signs on the horizon, which is why the council pushed for $600 million in additional savings from preliminary to exec. We identified $600 million in savings on top of the $250 million in budget reserves that we advocated for that you saw in the process. So it was a combination of new reserves, finding savings, and making some new targeted investments on libraries, parks, sanitations, and schools in a way that would benefit New Yorkers.
Come over to this side. Yep.
I'm still a little confused on the number of social workers. You said it was 200, the speaker said it was 285.
You should be confused. So let me unconfuse you. I said new for adopted. At the time of exec, we had the first 85 in. We've added 200 total. Well, again, afterwards you'll get on anything where you want to fine tune. Melanie, LaTanya, others will go over it with you. But the grand total is 285.
And then is the idea to put one in, like one per school, one for each school that may not have one?
Yes, and I'll just start and then turn to the speaker. The goal is to focus on need. So obviously the case of the kids who are in temporary housing or in homeless shelters, that's schools. Certain schools have more of those kids. The focus on the Thrive trained social workers will be schools that we think have a particular need as well. So that's the way it'll be determined.
So the metric we were using, both with OMB and the council that we negotiated, was targeting these, and again, Melanie, jump in if I'm wrong, was targeting these towards schools with the highest number of students in temporary housing, as the mayor said. And then another metric we used was the schools with the highest number of students that had been recorded for disciplinary measures, to try to target some social workers to help that population of students as well. So it was a combination of homeless students and students that may need additional support.
Even distribution, or will it be like?
It's going to be need-based. It's going to be need-based, so
Some places make it multiple.
we'll get you the details.
We don't have the perfect formula of that. I'm going to go on this side and then sweep back the other way. Yes.
Just to go back to something the speaker said, you talked about balancing the budget. Obviously, it has to be balanced
Yes.
every year. And the economy obviously is expanding greatly in this cycle. Why not let taxpayers keep some of the money they made and do a tax break so the budget isn't growing every year? Why take the money and then spend it on your priorities?
Well, we did a combination of things, and I would support a property tax rebate. We talked about it last year, but this is a different budget cycle than last year. And this year we have to look at what the current economic forecasts are, and we negotiate based off of that. And it's not just me personally. There's a team of people behind me that identify what the priorities are, and that's what we do. One of the things that's happening is last year through the budget process, the mayor and I jointly announced a property tax commission that has been meeting over the past year. From the briefings that I've received recently, they've made some enormous progress. I think they're going to put together some really good recommendations. The finance director at the city council and the OMB director are ex officio members of that property tax commission. They've been working really hard, as have their teams, and I believe they're going to come up with some recommendations for us to bring to Albany in the next legislative session next year. Again, even if we wanted to do a rebate, even if we wanted to restructure the property tax system, we would need state authorization to do so. And we want to let this property tax commission come up with the recommendations, make those recommendations to the mayor and to the council before we start weighing in that way.
So you concentrated on the presidential campaign.
I was motivated to get this budget done early because every year I've been trying to get the budget done early. And I give everyone a lot of credit. There was a tremendous amount of agreement. There's been months and months of work and endless meetings to get to this moment. But the bottom line is we believe once we see agreement, it's time to go, and we had agreement.
Do you have any plans for the campaign?
Well, I'll let you know when we have plans.
There's money in here to fund abortion services, and I believe that makes New York City the first city to provide direct funding to pay for that. Can you talk about that?
This is something I'll let the speaker, this was the initiative coming out of the council, but I certainly support it. I mean, look, we understand that there are women who need help and are having trouble getting the help they need, and the city had an opportunity here to step up. But let me have the speaker speak to the specifics since it was a council initiative.
This was on the abortion fund? Yeah. The abortion, yeah. So I am really, really proud that we are doing this, and the women of the city council are the ones who deserve the credit on this, not me. They're the ones that have led on this. They're the ones that have talked about this for months. I know that the co-chairs of the Women's Caucus, Carlina Rivera and Margaret Chin, have worked hard on this, as well as the chair of our committee on women, Helen Rosenthal, but all of the women worked hard. And you see what's happening across the country. They almost closed in the last couple of weeks, the last remaining abortion clinic in Missouri. We've seen bad Supreme Court decisions. We've seen state legislatures in Alabama and other places rolling back access to abortion care. I believe that abortion care is health care for women, and that it's between them and their doctors to make that personal decision. And as a man, I stand as an ally to them and how they make those decisions. So I'm proud that we're doing this. This is to help low-income women in New York City who have faced barriers to access to health care get the care that they need and that they deserve. And what typically happens when abortion care is restricted across the country, wealthier women still can get abortions because they can fly to places and drive across state lines to get abortions. But what happens is low-income women, predominantly women of color, are the ones that are locked out of the healthcare system and aren't able to have abortion access. And so I'm hopeful that in working with the women of the City Council, now we have 12 with Councilmember Farrah Lewis as our newest member, and now I look forward to working with them to figure out the best way to administer this fund with the organizations that advocated for it to target low-income women that really need this help and support.
The question of pay parity, and I understand you have to go into our labor process here, but does it concern you that there is no more specific commitment outlined in this budget?
No, there is alignment here. There's alignment that there's a commitment to get it done. We are standing here in front of all of you. The labor leaders were standing with us, and there is a committed, dedicated pathway towards resolution. But it would be irresponsible and inappropriate for either me or the mayor to interfere in collective bargaining. Collective bargaining exists for a reason, where the Daycare Council and the City of New York and the providers and the labor unions are going to have to sit around a table and hash it out. And what the mayor's commitment is and what the council has pushed for is getting all of us to say, we are going to get this done. So I couldn't do that. It would be irresponsible of me to give a dollar figure or to talk about all the other things that need to get negotiated. That is between the labor leaders and the city and the Daycare Council. And I believe by their presence here today, they are very excited by this commitment, and we look forward to doing that work together. And I'm really grateful for the amount of time the mayor has spent on this in actually educating me on, because I don't collectively bargain with labor unions as Speaker of the City Council. The mayor of the City of New York does that with his team. And so this has been a new experience for me, but I'm excited about what we were able to achieve today.
Okay, we're going to go back now. Anyone I haven't had a chance yet?
Over here.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, so where are the savings, and what, if anything, was cut back?
Melanie, let's go over some savings.
So our savings program in this plan is $329 million across fiscal years 19 and 20. $201 million is from debt service. $25 million is from the headcount reduction. 325 positions coming down. This is what we worked with the speaker and the council on. $83 million is from a reestimate of our fringe benefit savings there. And as the mayor said, there was a portion that came from Thrive. The total was $20 million in savings from Thrive, but $11 million got reinvested to support the 85 social workers.
Is there any other plan for further, let's say, reductions or across-the-board agency reductions?
That's, I'll just take that one because it's really straightforward. That's for the next budget process. Right now, we have a balanced budget. We have what we need in place. We'll obviously do a modification in November, as we always do. But I think in terms of a major new savings plan or anything like a PEG plan, that's typically something we'd look ahead to February for the preliminary on. Go ahead.
To say in April how much in cuts you plan to make to Thrive. Are there any cuts included in this budget?
Yes, the cuts to it was a $20 million cut to the Mental Health Service Corps, but again, about half of that was reinvested to allow for the Thrive-trained social workers to go into the schools. 20 million cuts, about half that money reinvested into the schools. Now let me see, anyone who has not gone, if you have not gone, please.
Is there any funding in this budget for affordable housing for seniors?
The affordable housing for seniors, let me give you exact numbers on that. So this has been something that's been growing over the course of years, and it's a major priority for us, and it's something our new Deputy Mayor Vicki Bean has been particularly focused on. So in this budget, we'll be adding resources to allow us to get to 800 more senior apartments over the next 4 years on top of the 3,200 we had for that time frame. So now we'll have about 4,000 senior units that will be funded for the next 4 years. It will show in the budget. There was some confusion in the past. It will show in the budget as a $500 million allocation over 4 years. And that is, just so you know what the addition is on the capital side, that's $275 million more in capital money that is going into this budget compared to last year's budget for senior affordable housing. Anyone who's not gone, not gone, not gone? Okay, Anna, back around.
Mr. Mayor, your DeWitt commissioner decided to resign today.
Yeah, we're going to do budget questions, and then I'll see some of you separately who have other questions. Let's do budget questions now.
The social workers are going to be baseline into future years.
Melanie, everything, all of them. All of them.
Okay. And is there any money in the budget for any additional investments in restorative justice or any other school measures like that?
Well, we've made a series of previous investments in restorative justice, but on the specifics, Melanie, you want to add?
I'll just say quickly before then the weekend director. So the council, we, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the council staff, we fund through our initiative process and through some of the one-shot agreements with the administration. I believe right now it's $3.2 million, I think, for restorative justice. So it's $3.2 million in restorative justice, but I believe that's a continuation of existing funding. And so the council's shown a commitment on that, and the administration has as well. But on the council side, that's what we stepped up with last year, $3.2 million in restorative. There may be from the administration side, but not from our side.
Anything new we're going to do, we'll do within the existing DOE budget. So we are continuing to prioritize restorative justice, but we'd have to find it from within the existing budget. Yes?
Just again, sorry to, I guess, go back to it, but with the social workers, could you explain just the difference between a Thrive social worker?
I just explained it. I really did. I explained it really clearly. I'm sorry. I can't repeat myself again. Go ahead.
So it sounds like everybody's happy here. I mean,
see, you've assessed the situation accurately.
Is there anything you didn't get to?
There's always, you know, Rich said, look, would we all wish there was even more resources, we could reach even more people, and of course. But what I want to really note is, within the realities we faced, everyone made decisions. And, you know, that's kind of the ultimate question of leadership is setting priorities, making decisions. Everyone did. I think we were pleased that we got a lot done. We covered a lot of ground. We would look forward to having more. Who hasn't gone second round? Wait, can I just pause you? I'm trying to get around to folks who have not had their second. Go ahead.
Could you just clarify again the savings? Like, I believe there was like $541 million that was part of the PEG that was mandated agency savings. Is that still here?
Yeah, of course. Anything that was previously in exec is here. And again, but again, let me clarify that. Just the broad point. We'll take a few more, but then if it's going to be all too much detailed questions, we'll have Melanie and LaTanya go over details with you to see if there's any other big stroke questions. But yeah, when we agree to a PEG program, we continue with it. Go ahead.
That $20 million Thrive reinvestment, is that a $20 million cut and some of it was reinvested?
Correct.
Or the entirety of the $20 million?
$20 million cut, so that spending that went to Mental Health Service Corps, that's not going to be spent on that anymore. And then, Melanie, give me the exact split, savings versus... 11 million go to the school social workers, 9 million go to general savings to fund everything else we're talking about. Yeah.
So I know that your portion after funding asked for, I think, $250 million.
1,000. That's very different. Very different.
their operating system. So is all of that going to them in this budget, or is it going to be divided among other providers?
We have to designate the money, and I want to have a conversation with them. The mayor and his team were helpful with the law department and figuring out how to get this done, which is why I hadn't talked about it before in the budget, because I didn't want to promise something or set up an expectation that we weren't able to meet. So the mayor and his team, through the law department and OMB, worked with us through that. So I want to have a conversation with them. I haven't had that conversation with them yet, so it would be inappropriate for me to answer yet. Joe, I just want to answer your question on the PEG. I mean, the OMB can get you all the details, but there were some PEG restorations. So we restored the money on the cultural groups, the PEG. We restored the money on the libraries on the PEG. We restored breakfast in the classroom on the PEG. We restored lot cleaning on the PEG. We restored highway ramp cleanup on the PEG, and there were some other PEG restorations that the council fought for as well. But there is still a PEG program that existed. There were just areas that we negotiated on in the PEG throughout the process, but the PEG program still achieved real savings.
Yes. I know there's been some debate about facility funding human services contracts. Did that make it into the budget? Any agreement there?
Well, the specific issue of addressing the overhead costs and the fact that a lot of the social service agencies doing such important work had costs that were really not being accounted for in the city funding. What we've achieved here with the council, and again, special credit to Councilmember Helen Rosenthal, is a pathway, a very specific plan. The organizations that have that exceptional overhead that's caused by the high volume of the work they do, they simply have to submit a formal request to OMB proving that they're at that higher level of overhead costs, and OMB will fund it. It's as simple as that. We will take that information over the course of the next year, and then that will help us determine something I've talked to the council member about, a sort of more consistent strategic path going forward on this issue. But the first thing we have to do is open up the doors and say, any organization that feels they're in that situation, submit your specifics, and if you reach that level, we're going to fund them. Yeah. Last two after this.
Jeff, on this, again, Helen deserves an enormous amount of credit, but the mayor had previously set up, even before this conversation in the budget process, the Nonprofit Resiliency Committee, which was put in place to work with some of these community-based organizations on some of these indirect cost issues. So the agreement that we have in place is to, as the mayor said, if there's an organization that has a higher indirect cost, and they can prove that to OMB, and that if that goes above 10%, say it went to 14% or 16%, and they can show that, they'll get reimbursed. There's a pathway to do that. I will say, and one thing that we've talked about a lot, and I know the mayor knows about this through his time in the council as general welfare chair, is that we need to expedite the contracting process for these nonprofit organizations that wait far too long to get reimbursed. Part of it is an issue with, this is not me criticizing them, but part of it, we have to work with the Mayor's Office of Contract Services and the Nonprofit Resiliency Committee, as well as the Comptroller's Office. Everyone who's involved in contracting, we need to sort of expedite it in a way that still routes out fraud and abuse. We don't want that, and has to respect their procurement process. But is there a way to get these nonprofits reimbursed more quickly for the work that they're doing? And I think there's an ongoing commitment to continue to have that conversation outside of the budget process over the course of this year to see how we can improve it.
And I just want to affirm that yes, when I was in the city council, I was totally frustrated by how long it took, and I'm still frustrated. But the fact is, some very important work has been done to streamline the process. I think you're going to start to see the effects of it this year. There's more to be done, and yes, always protecting the sanctity of the process. But I want to see money flow more quickly to those organizations as well. Two more.
Just to be clear on pay parity for the ADAs and public defenders,
yeah.
Is there a hard number here for that?
No, we don't do, again, all of these, we are committed to getting a path forward on that. We want to see them do well and do better. But I got to keep emphasizing to folks, in collective bargaining, anything that has to do with labor contracts, we do not negotiate in public. We don't put down a dollar figure to end up framing the process. This is all part of a discussion. But there are real retention issues and recruitment issues that we care about a lot for those folks, just like we care about them for the early childhood teachers. So that piece is going to get immediate attention, and then we're going to keep working throughout the coming months till we get it done. What is quite clear in this agreement. We will have a pathway to resolution by the early summer. In terms of early childhood, we'll have a pathway to resolution in the course of this year for sure in terms of the public defenders. We're going to take all these pieces and address them, and we're all mutually committed to that.
Follow up on that. So you're making a commitment here. What happens if these talks with the labor groups fall apart? Like, what mechanism is there for holding you accountable to?
We don't have a lot of, I'm going to be real with you, I mean, we don't have a lot of history of that. It doesn't mean it's theoretically impossible. I think everyone wants to get to a resolution. On the issue of the early childhood teachers, remember, we did a pay parity action, a first step, back in 2014, 15. So I have not seen that reported as widely as it might be, but it should be. We all got together and agreed on that. We're going to sort it out, and we're going to sort it out with the other folks. If there were an exceptional situation, we'd all get together and figure it out. Because remember, the budget process never, ever ends, as Melanie will attest, because there's a November mod preliminary in February, exec in April. But I'm pretty damn confident. We all want to get it done. I think everyone involved wants to get it done, so I'm hopeful. Gloria, last call. Well, we're doing budget. Last call on budget. We're going to go over there for a fun budget question. I accept.
What are these new sirens going to sound like from FD&Y vehicles?
Less obnoxious. No, less obnoxious. So have you been, I mean, I'm not an expert on every, hold on. One at a time, my friend.
That was a fun budget question.
Fun budget question. For those of you who may have traveled or watched television shows about travel, you hear in a lot of other parts of the world, the sirens are less piercing, but still tell you there's something coming to get out of the way of. So without being able to describe the exact sound, I'll learn how to imitate it. High-low.
High-low.
Thank you. It's a better pitch. So it's going to be easier on the ears of New Yorkers. We'll get you all the details on how many. Last call, Rich, go ahead.
So to many people around the country, a city budget of $92.8 billion is breathtaking.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Do you expect to have to defend yourself if you end up on a national stage as against an accusation of being a big spender?
No, I think it's quite clear. I think it's the other way around, honestly. I think people respect, and I've had this conversation. I mean, we're the fourth largest government budget in the United States of America, after the United States of America, state of California, state of New York, then us. And people I've talked to respect the fact that this is a very big operation. There's a broad understanding out there in the world. We have the finest police department, the finest fire department, the finest health department. You know, you go down the list. And that stuff costs money, but we are the gold standard. We're the gold standard. So what I find actually, Rich, is people are certainly awed by the dollar figure, but it's very easy to explain to them what we get for it and how it allows us to run this place the way it is run. And there's a tremendous respect for New York out there and what's achieved here every day. Yes, please.
Just one thing on this?
Yes.
I just want to just...
I can do this. There.
I'm not going to talk about what the mayor has to say across the country, but I would just say, on that question, I think the real answer that I feel really proud of is that we're at $92.8 billion. When many of us here were elected to the city council in 2013, the first budget that we dealt with, and the mayor's first budget as a newly elected mayor, was approximately $73 billion. So you've seen almost $20 billion in, again, revenue growth. And that is a testament to New York City's success. That is a testament to $780,000 of private sector, 780,000 private sector jobs being created. That is a testament to record level of tourism. That is a testament to attracting both big businesses and small businesses to New York City. That is a testament to keeping people in New York City who want to live here. That is the testament. And what we need to do is build on that and target our investments to help more people, the people that are struggling, the most vulnerable, public housing residents, vulnerable New Yorkers, people that are living in poverty. And what you've seen over this last almost 6 years is more people are leaving poverty than entering poverty because of the investments that we've made. And so I think it is a testament to the success of New York City, and everyone should be jealous of the greatest city in the world.